the Mapmaker's last revision. When the renovation team entered the basement of the long-abandoned Department of Cartographic Records, they expected a routine job. The building had been scheduled for conversion. New flooring, new wiring, fresh paint. Nothing unusual. But the deeper they went beneath the main archive, the more wrong things felt. The lowest floor wasn't on any blueprint. Hallways bent in slight, unnatural angles. Doors were narrower than standard dimensions, as if they'd been added after the rest of the structure was built. And one room, a cramped storage chamber at the far end, had a steel security bar bolted across its door, even though the building had been vacated decades earlier. Behind that door, buried beneath collapsed shelves and mold-softened boxes, they found it. A flat wooden map drawer, heavy, reinforced, sealed with two mismatched brass locks. The wood was dark and smooth like old piano lacquer, but the corners were chipped and frayed, exposing lighter grain beneath. Dust lined every surface except the lid, which looked disturbingly clean, as if it had been touched recently. A brittle tag hung from one lock. The ink had blurred almost to nothing, but the words were still legible. Revision 0, uncatalogued. Do not issue. The foreman shrugged, joked about bureaucratic paranoia, and had the drawer carried upstairs. That was their first mistake. The drawer opens. When the archival review team arrived the next morning, curiosity got the better of them. The department had closed in the 1990s. Everything here was a relic. The lock snapped easily, almost too easily, as if the metal had been softened. Inside lay a single parchment map, oversized and curled at the edges. It was beautiful, hand-inked rivers, gentle shading along valleys, tree symbols clustered like constellations. The place name in the center read, the place where paths end. No coordinates, no scale, no compass rose, just the valley, the forest, the crooked river, and vague, smudged silhouettes suggesting a settlement. Dr. Elaine Harrow, the review lead, noted something odd. The ink glistened faintly, like it hadn't fully dried, even though the paper was clearly centuries old. She assumed her eyes were tired, but several staff members independently wrote the same thing in their logs. Ink appears fresh. Defy. RST incident. On the evening of the second day, Maria Velasquez, the night shift archivist, stayed behind to catalog the map. She placed it under preservation glass and turned to fill out the documentation. When she looked back, her breath caught. A small dark mark had appeared near the edge of the river. Not a blot. A silhouette of a person, rendered with ultrafine detail no larger than a grain of rice. She leaned closer, her pulse thick in her ears. Had that been there before? She couldn't be sure. Maria made a quick note in her logbook. New figure at riverbank. Possible ink shift due to humidity. But she hesitated in the doorway when she left. Something about the map felt expectant, as if it were holding its breath. She never arrived home. Her abandoned car was discovered 30 kilometers north, pointed toward the mountain range the map didn't identify. Patterns emerge. Over the next week, the map behaved like something alive. Each morning brought a new change. The forest line extended further inward. The river's bend drifted a few millimeters to the east. And always, new silhouettes appeared at the valley's edge. The staff tried to photograph them. But printed photos came out blank, where the figures should have been, faint smudges at best. Digital copies warped or corrupted. Then something worse happened. On the following Thursday, at precisely 2:14 p.m., several staff members swore they saw when the tiny silhouettes move. A fractional shift, a change in posture, static ink repositioning itself when no one was touching it. Arguments broke out. Stress grew, and then another archivist vanished. His workspace was undisturbed. His phone was left behind. Only his logbook remained open, The final line written in hurried, unsteady strokes. There were 2 figures this morning. Now there are 3. On the map, 3 silhouettes stood exactly where he would have walked if he'd left the building by foot, all facing inward, all turned toward the settlement. Stage. Forgotten cartographer. Desperate for explanations, Dr. Harrow dug into the department's older internal records, untouched for decades. She found a strange entry from 1979. A part-time cartographer, Louis Nystrom, had gone missing while working in the same basement level. His notes described an unsubmitted field draft that no one else had seen. He'd written one final memo before his disappearance. The map doesn't show a place. It calls to one. The memo had been signed, stamped, and then aggressively crossed out by an unknown supervisor. It was the only reference to him in the entire archive. His body was never found. The valley changes. By the end of the second week, the valley on the map no longer looked like a serene forested basin. The trees warped into unnatural spirals. The shading suggested steep, impossible slopes. Lines that might have been paths curled like tendrils. And at the settlement center, a black shape formed, circular, dense, like a pit drawn with too much ink pressure. New silhouettes appeared daily, each placed closer to that dark center. Someone suggested burning the map. Someone else refused to touch it. Finally, as disappearances mounted, the department director ordered the map sealed in a lead-line cabinet, locked behind reinforced glass in the sub-basement. But the cabinet didn't appear in the demolition inventory. It simply wasn't listed, as though it had never existed. The last report, 2 months later, hikers reported strange sightings in the mountains north of the old cartographic department. A valley that didn't match any topographic records. A river that curved wrong. Lightless shapes of rooftops arranged in a pattern that mirrored the map's central settlement. Some swore they saw movement. Distant figures trudging toward the center of the basin. They could never describe their faces, only that they walked in silence, single file, as if following AP. ADH only they could see. Closing. The department no longer exists. The basement was filled with concrete. The land has new owners. But the old boundary surveys still show something unsettling. A blank, untouched square of land at the northern edge, unmarked, unzoned, unclaimed. Exactly the size of the valley on the map. A place where all paths end. And somewhere out there, sealed in a missing cabinet, an ancient parchment continues to update itself, piece by piece, silhouette by silhouette, revision by revision.